She said I cheated. She cried. I believed her. Then I found out she was the one who cheated and made it all look like my fault. I woke up with that awful kind of headache you get when you've either drank too much or been hit over the head with a brick. At first, I wasn't sure which. The ceiling above me was beige. The curtains were too dark. The bed felt unfamiliar, too firm. And the smell? Lemon disinfectant mixed with air freshener. The kind of place that tries too hard to seem clean. I sat up slowly. My body felt like it had been packed in a suitcase, dropped from a plane, and run over by airport traffic. I looked around the room. Hotel. Definitely a hotel. Mid-range. The kind of place you crash during a work trip. Not romantic. Not memorable. Just there. But I wasn't on a work trip. There was a folded piece of paper on the nightstand next to me. A photo. An actual printed photo. Who even does that anymore? I picked it up. My stomach dropped. It was me. Me, sitting on the edge of a hotel bed. My shirt half unbuttoned. A woman, brunette, unfamiliar, sitting close beside me, laughing. Her hand on my knee. My hand on hers. We looked like we'd known each other a long time. Intimate. Comfortable. Guilty. I had no memory of it. Not just the photo, the whole night. How I got here. Who she was. How it ended. Nothing. Just blank space in my head where my life should have been. I scrambled to find my phone. Not in my pockets. Not on the nightstand. I found it on the floor under the edge of the bed. Battery nearly dead. 2 missed calls from Megan. My wife. Megan. God, I didn't want to call her back. But when I got home, somehow she was already waiting. She was sitting at the kitchen table like she had every right to be there. But the air around her was different. Still. Cold. Sharp. I walked in, and she didn't even flinch. Just turned the phone in her hand to show me something. A video. It was the same woman. The same room. Me, standing, laughing, pulling the woman in by the waist. The video was only 8 seconds long, but it was enough. More than enough. I sat down without saying a word. Megan didn't yell. She didn't throw things. She didn't cry, not then. She just looked at me and said, very calmly, I always knew you had it in you. I remember staring at her like I was underwater. Everything was muffled. The guilt hit me before logic had a chance. I told her I didn't remember anything. That it didn't feel like me. That I had no idea how it happened. But even as I said the words, I could hear how pathetic they sounded. Megan stayed silent for a long time. Then she stood, walked around the table, kissed me on the forehead and whispered, "You broke us. Now you fix it." And then she left. That week was hell. She wasn't answering my calls. My texts got nothing back. I started digging into my own memory like a madman. I retraced every step from the night before. Drinks with coworkers. Yes. I remembered the bar. I remembered a few rounds. But not leaving. Not the hotel. Not the woman. I asked my friends. They said I left alone. So how the hell did I end up there? I started therapy. I told Megan. She didn't reply. I wrote a long letter. Full of apologies. Shame. Promises. I slid it under the door of her friend's place, where I knew she was staying. No answer. Then, about 10 days later, she called. Her voice was flat. She said, "Let's talk." We met at a coffee shop. She looked better. Stronger. Like someone who had done the crying part already. Like someone who was deciding what came next. I spilled everything. Said I didn't remember, but I must have done it. I asked her if there was any way back. She said, "I'm not sure I want to go back. But I want to understand why." We talked. For hours. She told me how long she'd felt disconnected. Unseen. Like I was too busy with work, with distractions, with life. She said she felt like she was already alone long before this happened. I cried. I apologized again. I told her I would change. She nodded, but didn't commit to anything. We met a few more times after that. Slowly, she started responding to texts again. She sent me a photo of our cat. Then a meme. Then a memory from our honeymoon. Hope is a cruel thing. It sneaks in through cracks you didn't know were still open. By the 3rd week, she moved back in. Said it was temporary. Said she wasn't promising anything. Said we needed to be grown-ups about this. I was just glad to have her back. I started planning a surprise for her. A photo album, something personal, from our early years. To show her what we had. What we could still save. I used her laptop to look for some old backups we'd stored. She wasn't home. It wasn't a big deal. We never had secrets between us. At least, I thought so. I was digging through folders when a notification popped up. Message from someone named Jay. He still doesn't know? Then another. Don't forget to delete the backups. I froze. Jay? Who the hell was Jay? And what backups? My hands were sweating. I clicked open the message app. There were hundreds of messages. Most deleted. Only fragments left. Enough to make my stomach turn. Photos of the same hotel room. The same woman from the video, but not blurry, not distant. Clear. Close. Laughing into the camera. Holding a wine glass. Taking selfies with Megan. Megan was in the room. She wasn't just watching. She wasn't just aware. She was there. She set it up. Everything, the photos, the video, the story she told me, the pain she played out in front of me, every bit of it had been orchestrated. Because I hadn't cheated. I'd been drugged. And Megan had done it. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I just sat there, in the half-dark of our living room, with her laptop on my lap, every part of me vibrating with adrenaline and something darker. Rage? Maybe. But more than that, disbelief. Confusion. Shock. Like my entire body was caught between fight and freeze. I kept going through the fragments of messages I could recover. The photos. The file names. Every detail. I couldn't stop. I didn't want to miss anything. I needed to understand how deep this went, how long she'd been planning it. One of the earliest messages from Jay, a name that now made my teeth grind, was from over 6 weeks before the night in the hotel. That meant she started planning this at least a month and a half before she ever confronted me with the photo. Jay, make sure the timestamp matches. I can mock up the hotel details if needed. Megan, no need. Already booked the same room. He won't remember. I'll make sure of it. He won't remember. I'll make sure of it. I read that line probably 20 times. My vision blurred. I actually felt sick. I stood up, rushed to the bathroom, and dry-heaved into the sink. This wasn't just betrayal. This was engineering. She had drugged me, filmed me, created a story, played the victim, let me drown in guilt. And for what? That question echoed in my head. Why? What did I do to deserve this? Was it about revenge? Control? A way to escape the marriage without being the villain? Was she in love with Jay? I didn't even know who he was. There was no full name, no photo of him. Just this initial. But clearly he was close enough to be in on it. As I kept digging, more of the truth came out, ugly and clinical. There were scripts. Megan had typed out versions of what she might say to me in notes files. Rehearsed lines. Timing. Emotional beats. Even reminders to herself, don't cry until he sees the video. She hadn't just fooled me. She'd studied how to fool me. She knew exactly how I'd react. Knew I'd fold under guilt. Knew I'd beg to fix it. She was right. I did. And now? Now I needed a plan. That morning, she walked in like nothing had happened. She'd gone out for a run. Hair in a loose ponytail. Face flushed. She gave me a casual smile, said, "Hey," and kissed my cheek like we were just any couple trying to move on from a mistake. I played along. I asked her how her run was. She said fine. Talked about a neighbor's dog chasing her. Laughed like everything was fine. I watched her. Every blink. Every breath. Every line on her face. She didn't look like a monster. She looked like the woman I'd married. The woman I'd loved for 7 years. And somehow, that made it worse. She sat across from me at the table, eating yogurt, scrolling through her phone. I stared at her hands. Steady. Clean. Those were the same hands that held my face the night she told me she forgave me. I spent the next week pretending. Pretending to rebuild. Pretending to go to therapy. Pretending to make peace with what I did. She was careful. Played the role of the hurt but healing wife perfectly. At night, she touched my arm in bed like she missed me. She smiled when I brought her coffee in the morning. She even joked about the irony of us getting stronger after the worst possible thing. Maybe we needed to break first. Break me, she meant. I nodded. Agreed. Kissed her cheek. And I kept digging. I started backing up everything. Took photos of every fragment I could recover from her laptop. Messages. Metadata. File timestamps. I even contacted a friend of mine from college who worked in digital forensics. Told him I needed help on a side project. Didn't mention Megan. He agreed to look into the files. Said he'd need a week. While I waited, I started watching her more closely. She had patterns. Her smiles came too quickly after certain questions. Her excuses were rehearsed. I began to see through the performance. And then something new happened. She told me she was thinking of going away for the weekend. A solo trip. To clear her head. I asked where. She said she didn't know yet. Somewhere coastal. Maybe Santa Cruz. Maybe with her journal and a bottle of wine. And then she asked, very casually, "Would you mind if I took your car? I think mine needs an oil change." The way she asked it felt off. Too soft. Too light. I said sure. Of course. No problem. But that night, after she fell asleep, I checked her calendar. Private. Password protected. But I'd already guessed the passcode 2 nights earlier. She had a note in there. J, Bodega Bay, Friday 7 p.m. Room 203. Bodega Bay. She wasn't going to find herself. She was going to find him. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wanted the full picture. I called the hotel and made my own reservation. 2 rooms down. Same floor. If she was going to lie to my face again, I wanted to see it. I wanted to hear what she said when I wasn't the one in the room. When she thought she was safe. I didn't know what I'd do after that. But I knew one thing. I wouldn't let her rewrite my story. Not again. The thing about watching someone you love lie to you is this. It's not just about what they're saying. It's about what they're not saying, how they look when they say it, the way their eyes shift ever so slightly. Megan was good at it. Too good. As her weekend getaway approached, she started to bloom. She smiled more, laughed more, hummed in the kitchen, the version of her I'd fallen in love with. And maybe, that was the most twisted part. She was happy, because she thought she got away with it. The day she left, she packed light, kissed me on the cheek, and said, I think this will be good for both of us. I nodded, told her to be safe, said I loved her. She hesitated, then said, love you too, and walked out. I waited 2 hours, then drove north. Bodega Bay was under 3 hours away. Quiet, coastal, isolated, ideal for an affair. I checked into the hotel using a fake name. Paid extra for hallway camera feed access. Claimed I was filming a documentary. Room 207. Hers was 203. I sat in the dark with her laptop open to the feed. GoPro in my bag. Audio recorder. A new iPhone with voice memos ready. Some people prepare for confrontation with a weapon. I had surveillance and a ruined heart. She arrived at 6:43 p.m. I watched her check in. Sunglasses on, long coat. Trying not to look like Megan, but I knew every detail. 7 minutes later, he arrived. Tall, fit, confident. I froze when I recognized him. Jared. Her old coworker. The one she once called harmless. The one she suddenly stopped mentioning. They embraced outside her door. She kissed him. Not shy. Familiar. Comfortable. I didn't watch everything. Couldn't. But I recorded it all. I needed proof. At 9:22 p.m., she stepped into the hallway and made a call. I couldn't hear the words, but her pacing and gestures told me enough. She was practicing something. Then she went back inside. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't need to. Monday morning, I drove home before her. Cleaned the kitchen. Made coffee. Set the stage. She walked in at noon, smiling. Wore the same coat, same softness in her voice. Missed you, she said. Me too. We talked casually. I asked how the trip was. Peaceful. I'm glad. She touched my hand. I think we're getting better. I agree, I said. And I want to show you something. Her face tightened. I brought out the laptop. Clicked play. Hallway footage. Her. Jared. The kiss. Then audio. Her laugh. Her voice calling me easy to fool. She froze. I closed the laptop. I'm going for a walk. I'd recommend you're gone by the time I get back. When I returned, the house was quiet. Her things half gone. No note. Just silence. I opened a beer. Sat in the backyard. Watched the sky. She had rewritten our story. Gaslit me into guilt. And for a while, she won. But now, I had the truth. And the truth was mine again. It's strange how silence can feel louder than shouting. The house felt bigger without her. Not physically. It was still the same 3-bedroom box we'd shared for years, but it echoed now. Every sound bounced. Every room felt like it had its own breath, holding itself just a little too long. Waiting for something. I waited too. It had been 3 days since Megan left. She took half her things. Not enough to make it final. Just enough to remind me she still had keys. Still had power. Her toothbrush was gone, but her winter coat was still in the closet. Her favorite coffee mug, gone. But the wedding album? Still on the shelf. Part of me expected a message. A call. Something. But nothing came. And yet, somehow, I knew I hadn't seen the last of her. I spent those 3 days trying to live normally. I worked remotely. I cooked. Cleaned. Walked around the neighborhood like everything was fine. Even went to therapy, told my therapist what happened, in vague terms. She said I seemed like I was hovering between relief and trauma. She wasn't wrong. I didn't tell anyone else. Not yet. People like to simplify betrayal. Make it black and white. She cheated. I left. The end. But the reality is messy, eh? especially when you've lived years with someone, when you've built routines, inside jokes, a life. I wasn't mourning her as a wife. I was mourning who I thought she was, and mourning the man I was when I believed her. On the fourth day, she texted, "Can we talk?" No apology. No explanation. Just that. I stared at the screen for a long time before typing back. Tomorrow. 7. Our place. I didn't know what I was doing. Curiosity? Closure? Maybe I just wanted to see if she could lie to my face again now that I knew everything. She arrived on time. She looked tired, paler, less polished than usual. No makeup. Her hair pulled back roughly, like she hadn't slept. Her eyes darted when I opened the door. We didn't hug, didn't speak at first. Just sat at opposite ends of the couch like strangers who'd once shared something important and now had to pretend they hadn't. "I owe you an explanation," she said. I didn't answer. She sighed. "You were pulling away. I felt it for months. And I didn't know how to talk to you. Jared, he was just there. He listened. I didn't mean for it to happen. I let her talk. I wanted to hear how far she'd go, how much she'd spin. I never meant to hurt you," she added. I panicked. After that night, when I realized what I'd done, I thought if I told the truth, I'd lose everything. So I made it look like it was you. I studied her. And drugging me? She blinked. "It was just something to make you sleep. Jared said it would wear off by morning." So casual. Like she was talking about melatonin. "I trusted you," I said. "I know." Silence. "I loved you," I said. "I did too," she whispered. And I believed her. For a second, I believed she believed that too. Then she asked the question I was waiting for. "So, what now?" That was the thing. I didn't know. I could have screamed. Could have thrown her out. Could have told every friend and family member what she did. Sent them the video. The messages. Exposed her. But I didn't. I just looked at her and said, "I don't know who you are anymore." And she cried. She left quietly. This time, I locked the door behind her. That night, I opened a private drive and uploaded everything, the footage, the audio, the logs. Not for revenge. Not yet. Just in case. I didn't know if she was gone for good. But I knew better than to believe the story was over. Because with Megan, the story was never really over. I started to sleep again. Not well. Not deeply. But the kind of sleep that doesn't end in nightmares or pacing the hallway. That was something. I'd take the small wins where I could get them. She hadn't contacted me since our last conversation. I told myself that was a good thing. Proof that maybe she'd finally accepted the damage she caused. But some part of me didn't believe she was done. I started sorting through what she left behind. Little things. A scarf. A backup charger. A half-used journal. I wasn't going to read it. That felt like a line I didn't want to cross. But then I did. Of course I did. Curiosity is a hell of a drug. Most of it was scribbles, lists, thoughts, nothing explosive. Until the last 5 pages. The handwriting changed. Became tighter. Less fluid. And there it was. He'll never see it coming. The guilt will eat him alive. I won't even have to lie much. He'll do it for me. He always does. I had to read it twice. I set the journal down and just sat there, trying to understand what kind of person thinks that way. Writes it down. Leaves it behind like a calling card. I wasn't angry. Not in that moment. Just hollow. It was never about me cheating. Or about her cheating. It was about power. She needed to win something I didn't even know we were competing in. I went back to therapy that week. Told my therapist everything. The fake cheating. The journal. The way she stared at me like a stranger when I confronted her. My therapist leaned back and said something that stuck. "You're not rebuilding from betrayal. You're recovering from psychological warfare." It rang true in my bones. I had lived in a maze someone else was drawing around me. No wonder I didn't know which way was forward. A week passed. Then another. I didn't hear from her. Didn't see her. And then I got the letter. A plain white envelope. No return address. My name in her handwriting. Inside was a typed letter, printed on heavy paper. No signature. Just this. "You're good. I underestimated you. Maybe we were never meant to last. Or maybe we could have, if you hadn't made it so easy to hate you. Either way, you'll always be the man who apologized for something you didn't do." Think about that. There was something taped to the bottom of the letter. A photo. Me. From the night in the hotel. A different angle. Someone else had been watching. I called my digital forensics friend the next day. Told him I needed to know more about Jared, about that night, about who else might have been involved. He agreed. Said he'd start digging into her old phone backups. And I knew what I had to do next. It wasn't about revenge. It was about clarity, because if she wasn't done with this game, then I had to finish it myself. It started with the emails. My friend Sam, the digital forensics guy, called me late one night. I found something, he said. He sounded unsettled. Not excited. Not curious. Unsettled. Her old Gmail account had a synced archive. Tons of deleted stuff. Jared's emails. Plans. Schedules. And another name. I asked him to send me everything. He didn't. Not right away. Man, are you sure you want to go deeper? He asked. This isn't just cheating. This is premeditated. Like, sociopathic level stuff. I said yes. Of course I did. He sent a zipped folder. I opened it slowly, like peeling a bandage you already know hides a wound. Inside were dozens of PDFs, screenshots, extracted files, password hints, encrypted zips. Some I couldn't open. Some I could. The ones I could made my skin crawl. They weren't just planning to fake my cheating. They were planning my breakdown. Literal notes on how to manipulate my sense of time, sleep, routine. Things she could subtly change to make me feel unwell. Gaslighting at a technical level. There were emails where Jared wrote things like, start moving his keys again. Don't let him feel stable. Sleep meds should kick in within 30. Try the chamomile story again. Keep your tone even. Don't overplay. He hates drama. Use that. I stared at the screen, jaw clenched, hand shaking on the mouse. This wasn't just a betrayal of trust. This was abuse. Systematic. Calculated. And then there was the name Sam mentioned. Allie. A third person. Someone copied on some of the earlier emails. I clicked through. She was a mutual acquaintance, someone Megan had known from a creative writing group. I remembered her. Kind, artistic, a little shy. Megan once said she didn't vibe with her anymore. Apparently, that was because Allie didn't want to be part of the plan. She tried to stop it. There was an email from her to Megan. I thought this was a fantasy thing. I didn't think you'd actually do it. You need help. He's a real person. And then Megan's reply. He's not real. He's a mask. A predictable, boring, reactive mask. I'm done living inside his comfort zone. I met with Sam in person the next day. He handed me a flash drive. That's everything, he said. But don't let it eat you. You got out. Did I? It didn't feel like I was out. It felt like I was still inside the maze. Still breathing her air. Still playing a part in a story she started writing a long time ago. I didn't know what to do with the files. Not yet. But I printed the worst ones. And I mailed them, anonymously, to Jared's wife. Yes, he was married. I found her on LinkedIn. Then Facebook. They had 2 kids. She deserved to know. I didn't write a note. Just sent the papers in a plain envelope. I didn't feel heroic. Or vengeful. Just tired. But for the first time in weeks, that tired felt clean. That night, I sat outside with a beer and stared up at the sky. It was clear. Cold. Stars sharp enough to cut through the dark. And I thought, this is the part in the story where the villain disappears for a while. But she always comes back. So I waited. I didn't know when. Or how. But I knew Megan. She wasn't done. Not yet. She came back on a Thursday. I heard the key turn in the lock just past noon. I was on a work call in the living room when the door opened. My chest tightened. Not because I was scared, I wasn't. But because part of me had been waiting for that sound. She stepped in like nothing had changed. Her coat still smelled like the vanilla perfume she always wore. Same purse. Same boots. As if the last few weeks hadn't happened. I ended my call early. She stood near the doorway, not saying anything. Just watching me. I didn't think you'd still have a key, I said calmly. I wasn't sure it would work, she replied. We stood in silence for a while. I watched her eyes scan the room, like she was taking inventory. Looking for signs of something she hadn't approved. I came to get the rest of my stuff, she finally said. And maybe talk. Which one first? She gave a tight smile. I guess that depends on how you're feeling. I motioned to the guest room. Everything's boxed up. She walked down the hall without another word. I listened to her footsteps. The sound of the door closing. A pause. Then nothing. 15 minutes passed. I didn't move. Then she came back. Can we sit? She asked. I didn't want to. But I nodded. We sat across from each other on opposite couches like 2 lawyers between depositions. I heard from Jared, she said. I stayed quiet. He's furious, she added. His wife left him. Still, I said nothing. Her tone sharpened. You sent her those files, didn't you? I looked at her flatly. You're the one who left them lying around. You could have ruined his life. I didn't ruin anything. I just made sure the truth got where it needed to go. She shook her head like I'd disappointed her. The irony of that nearly made me laugh. You're not as clean as you pretend to be, she said. No, I'm just not a coward. She didn't cry. Not this time. I think she came expecting to reclaim the upper hand. And when that didn't happen, when she realized I wasn't playing her game anymore, she flinched. For the first time, she looked unsure. I never thought it would go that far, she said after a while. Which part? I asked. Drugging me? Filming me? Or telling the world I broke us when you were already gone? She winced. I wanted to leave, but I didn't know how, she muttered. So you made me into the bad guy. She didn't respond. We sat in silence again. I'm not going to destroy you, Megan, I finally said. That's not who I am. But I'm not going to protect your image, either. If anyone asks me what happened, I'll tell them the truth. She nodded slowly. That's fair. I stood. Take your things. This is the last time you walk through that door. Her eyes met mine. Okay. She paused at the door. Opened it. Then turned back. You know, she said, for a while, I actually thought we were perfect. We were, I said. Until you started rewriting the story. She didn't answer. Just closed the door behind her. And this time, I locked it. I stood in the middle of the room for a long time after that. Everything was still. Like the house was holding its breath with me. I walked down the hallway, opened the guest room door. Boxes still untouched. She hadn't taken anything. I opened one and found the photo album. The one from our trip to Italy. I hadn't looked at it in years. I sat down and flipped through pages. Her smile in Florence. Our rented scooter in Rome. The wine tasting in Tuscany. We'd been happy. Or maybe I had. I closed it. Pushed it back in the box. Sealed it shut with tape. I wasn't going to keep souvenirs of someone who'd studied how to lie to me. I made dinner that night. Not because I was hungry, I wasn't, but because the act of cooking grounded me. Chopping vegetables. Searing meat. Watching the water boil. It gave me something to control. I didn't check my phone all night. I didn't want to know if she messaged again. The next morning, a letter slid under the door. No envelope. Just a single page. It read, You're stronger than I thought. I wanted to punish you. For being better. For being stable. For not needing me. I didn't know how else to feel powerful. I didn't know how to exist without someone breaking beside me. I'm sorry you were that someone. I read it twice. Then a third time. And then I burned it in the sink. Some apologies aren't for healing. They're for haunting. And I wasn't letting her haunt me anymore. That night, I changed the locks. I slept with the windows open. Cold air in my lungs. Silence in the walls. For the first time in a long time, I felt safe. 2 weeks passed. I thought maybe, finally, that was it. No calls. No texts. No surprise visits. No more letters slid under the door. The air was clearer. My routine steadier. Work made sense again. Even my therapist said I looked different, like I was living in my own skin for the first time in months. I went for longer walks. I stopped checking my phone every 10 minutes. I started reconnecting with friends I hadn't seen since everything fell apart. They asked about Megan. I told them the truth. Not all of it. Not yet. But enough. She cheated, I'd say. It got complicated. I let her go. Most nodded with a mix of sympathy and relief. A few looked surprised. One even said, honestly, I never liked how she looked at you. Like she was watching you more than seeing you. That stuck with me. Because it was true. She watched me. Always calculating. I started to feel free. Until I got the email. Subject line, Statement of Claim, Civil Filing Notice. From, no-reply at countyfiling.gov. I opened it, heartbeat instantly back in my throat. Attached was a PDF. Megan's name. My name. Filed claim for emotional distress, defamation, and reputational harm. I blinked. Reread it. She was suing me. I forwarded the document to a lawyer I'd met through a friend, someone who handled messy breakups, property disputes, even psychological abuse cases. She got back to me the next morning. This is strategic retaliation, she said. She's trying to flip the narrative, make you the aggressor. It's a bluff, but a dangerous one. Can she win? I asked. Only if we let her shape the truth before we do. She advised me to start documenting everything: timelines, emails, messages, backups. Fortunately, I already had all of it. Sam's folder. The GoPro footage. The audio logs. Even the journal pages she left behind. We started building a counterclaim. It wasn't about money. It was about stopping her. Because it was clear now, Megan hadn't come back for closure. She came back to rewrite the ending. The hardest part was knowing that her version would sound better to some people. She was convincing. She knew how to perform sincerity. She knew how to cry without breaking. She knew which words made people lean in instead of lean away. And she still had friends. Allies. People who hadn't seen what I'd seen. So I went quiet. Focused. Let my lawyer handle the filings. I sent Sam an encrypted copy of everything insurance, I told him. He said, "You're playing this smart." But it didn't feel smart. It felt like war. A war I never wanted to fight. But when I wasn't backing out of. A few days later, I got another message. A burner number. Text only. You think you know the whole story. You don't. M. No follow-up. No context. I stared at the message for a long time. My gut said ignore it. But I didn't. I replied, then tell it. No response. But a day later, I received an email. No subject. No body. Just an audio file. I played it. It was Megan. A recording. Her voice, calm, slow, but deliberate. There are things you never saw. Things I never told you. About your friend. About that night. About what Jared really wanted. You think you know everything, but you were only the mark. We were all playing roles. You just believed yours. She paused. I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying this because you've already decided who I am. And maybe that makes it easier for you. But ask yourself this. Why didn't you ask more questions when the truth finally came out? Why didn't you wonder why someone like Jared would help me destroy someone like you for free? The file ended. I sat there, frozen. Was she bluffing? Trying to bait me into something? Or was this the next layer? I didn't know. But I knew one thing. This wasn't over. It was only now beginning to show its true shape. I replayed the audio 3 more times. Each word, each pause, each shift in her tone. Megan's voice had always been sharp when she was lying. I knew it intimately, the soft edge of manipulation wrapped in calm delivery. But this wasn't that. This was different. There was a strange clarity in her voice. A resignation. She wasn't pleading. She wasn't threatening. She was offering something. I didn't quite understand yet. I sent the file to my lawyer. She called me an hour later. She's baiting you, she said. Trying to unnerve you before the first hearing. Don't engage. But what if there's more? I asked. What if she's not lying? She is, she said. Even if she isn't, it doesn't change what she did. That weekend, I drove out to the coast. I needed space. A reset. The same route Megan and Jared had taken weeks ago, only this time, it was just me. No cameras. No intentions. Just the road and the salt air. I stayed in a small motel, walked the beach, watched the fog roll in. I turned off my phone. I needed to hear my own thoughts again. The first night, I sat on the sand until it was dark. I thought about that question. Why didn't I ask more questions? Because I trusted. Because I wanted it to be over. Because sometimes the truth is too heavy to carry when you're already bleeding. But now I wasn't bleeding. Now I wanted the whole story. When I got back, I went straight to Sam. Pull everything, I said. Not just Megan. I want to know who else was involved. He didn't ask why. He just nodded. 3 days later, he called me. Hey, he said. I found something weird. What kind of weird? He hesitated. You're not gonna like it. He sent me a folder. Inside, more emails. But these weren't from Megan's account. They were from Jared's. Forwarded to a third address. A name I recognized. Travis. My best friend. The guy I'd vented to during the worst days of the breakdown. The one who told me to go to therapy. The one who always had my back. There were emails between Jared and Travis dating back months. Coordinating. Commenting. Even mocking. He still doesn't get it. Unbelievable. Keep pushing the guilt angle. He folds fast. I felt like the floor disappeared. I called Sam. Why would he be involved? Sam paused. You said Megan liked control, right? Maybe she needed someone close to you to make sure you cracked the way she wanted. But why would he do that? I don't know, Sam said. But you better ask. I met Travis the next day. Public place. Quiet. A park bench we used to sit on after pickup basketball games. I didn't tell him what I knew right away. Just let him talk. He asked how I was. Said he was glad I seemed better. And then I said, you knew. He went still. What are you talking about? You worked with Jared. You fed Megan lines. You helped her screw with my head. His face changed. Not shocked. Not defensive. Just calm. Look, he said, you were in a loop. Everything was always about you. Your job, your goals, your anxiety. You never really saw her. I tried to help you. You wouldn't let anyone in. So you decided I deserved this? He sighed. I didn't think it would go that far. I thought she just needed an out. You'd break, she'd leave, and it would be over. You gaslit me, I said, voice low. You weaponized what I told you in confidence. You stood there while I unraveled, and you smiled. He didn't deny it. Sometimes, he said, people like you need to lose everything to understand what you had. I stood. My hands were shaking. Stay the hell away from me. He didn't follow, didn't call, didn't apologize. I went home and opened the journal Megan left behind. The entries I hadn't finished. I flipped to the end. There it was. A line I missed before. Travis was the key. Once he started echoing the narrative, it was over. I just had to wait. Echoing the narrative. Everything I'd lived for 3 months had been scripted. I wasn't crazy. I was surrounded. That night, I stared at the ceiling and asked myself the real question. What do you do when the people who said they loved you were all just actors in a story you didn't write? I didn't have an answer. But I knew one thing. Part 10 wouldn't be about them. It would be about me. There's a moment when everything goes still, not calm, but quiet. Not peace, but exhaustion. When the dust settles and you're left with a room full of ruins and the only thing you can hear is your own breathing. That's where I was. Not angry. Not afraid. Just awake. The lawsuit never made it to court. My lawyer filed a counterclaim, so thoroughly documented it shut everything down within a week. Megan withdrew the suit, citing emotional strain and concern for reputational integrity. Translation, she lost. But this story was never about legal wins. This was about truth and survival. I sent letters. One to Megan. I didn't threaten. I didn't accuse. I wrote a single page, handwritten. You don't own the story anymore. Whatever you do next, it won't be written in my voice. You taught me how dangerous silence can be, but now I know how loud truth sounds when you let it breathe. I never heard back. One to Travis. Shorter. You were my brother. I would have walked through fire for you. Instead, you poured gasoline. Goodbye. And one to myself. I didn't write it down. I just said it in the mirror. You were broken. You were manipulated. But you came back. Not whole, but honest. And that matters more. The house was different now. I changed the paint. Replaced the photos. Moved the furniture. Nothing drastic, just enough to break the echo. I stopped waking up expecting her voice in the next room. I stopped reaching for my phone with dread in my chest. Sam visited once a week. We talked about books, about tech, about anything but her. That was the rule. One night, he said, you ever think about dating again? I laughed. Not yet. But maybe. 6 months passed. Then, out of nowhere, I got an email. No subject line. No sender name. Just one line of text. You'll always wonder which part was real. I stared at it for a long time. And then I did something that surprised even me. I deleted it. Didn't reply. Didn't save it. Because I didn't need to know anymore. I didn't need closure from the person who taught me what real betrayal looks like. I already had it. I started writing again. Nothing dramatic, just journaling. Stories. Things I hadn't had room for in my head while surviving. I went back to therapy. I forgave myself. That was the hardest part. Because shame doesn't leave when the liar is exposed. It lingers. It whispers. It tries to convince you that being fooled means being foolish. But I wasn't foolish. I was trusting. And next time, if there is one, I'll trust differently. Not less. Just with better eyes. So what's the lesson? People ask me that now. They hear pieces of what happened, the betrayal, the lies, the manipulation, and they want meaning. A takeaway. Here's what I tell them. Sometimes the villain isn't obvious. Sometimes love is just a well-rehearsed performance. Sometimes survival doesn't look like revenge. Sometimes it's just waking up and choosing not to be afraid of your own life anymore. And if you're lucky, if you survive it, you get to rebuild. You get to tell your story. In your own words.